Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum and peace be unto you. Welcome to the Deen show, which is a way of life which we try to put out there for everyone to see, helping you understand Islam and Muslims. What's a Muslim? A Muslim is one who does Islam. What is Islam? It's an action, it's a verb. It's to submit and to surrender your will to the will of the Creator. You learned something already, and you're going to learn some more. We're bringing out our special guest this week. You can go into the interview we did with him. We're covering the topic of marriage. You can learn more about him. We're going to introduce him. He's about to come out. Special guest, Sheikh Yaser Birjas. Welcome to the Deen show. Alright, Sheikh, thank you for coming out. We went over your formal background on the last show that we did, but real quick, people can go back. We're going to have all your topics under your category. Special guest, Yaser Birjas. I'm gonna get that right one day.
Inshallah.
All right.
You will. It's very easy.
Yes. Birjas. You graduated with honors as a class Victorian from the Yale of Islamic Universities in Medina.
True. University of Medina.
Medina, yes. And you're the Imam spiritual leader in El Paso, Texas?
No.
Okay.
I'm instructor of Al-Maghrib Institute.
Al-Maghrib Institute?
Alhamdulillah.
All right. Now we're going to get into the topic, marriage. Today, it's become something that is not being held on to as it was back just, I don't know how many years ago, as something entrusted, something pure. Today, people are test driving in relationships, just like you're test driving a car. People are living together. You know, you mean, this is my girlfriend, this is my boyfriend. You don't hear like, this is my husband, this is my wife. It's something that now is become a norm in society, that people are drifting away from marriage.
True.
Or even the youth that want to get married, some parents are even making it more difficult. They're saying, wait till you finish college. Where back then you had people getting married at a younger age, preserving the family. But what's happening today, I got to finish, I got to get my doctor's degree, I got to get this PhD, and the woman's 30, she's independent now. There's nothing wrong with being independent, but she's 30 and still not married. The boy, he wants to, have his fun, test drive as many cars as he can, and then get married. We want you to go into this subject and tell us how Islam preserves marriage, what it says about marriage, what's the man's role, what's the woman's role. Really clarify this in detail. Can you do that, inshallah?
Inshallah.
Okay.
Can do that. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu wasallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, amma ba'd. All praise due to Allah, the most merciful, the compassionate, and may peace and blessing of Allah be upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Marriage in Islam. Love is probably the most spoken about subject in life of men and women today. People, they have this kind of feeling and passions to love each other. They would like to establish relationship. They would like to have a happy life. And most men and women, they have their own ideals about the concept of relationship and the concept of love as well. We see that in this century, the 21st century right now, most men and women are enjoying the companionship of one another without having any specific limits, except for a few, of course. So they have started their own ideology of love, their own ideology and culture of relationship and marriage as well. It has changed a lot from the time when people, they used to appreciate the concept of family, the concept of marital life, being a spouse, being someone who's caring for you and caring for someone else, having the concept of having children and raising up, a solid foundation for the society in the future. People have changed a lot, and they've changed a lot of these concepts as well. In Islam, the institution of marriage is still solid in theory and in application as much as possible, but we still see that so many people are also drifting from that mainstream of the culture of marriage and family life to something new in this society. You see, we are seeing right now many young people, young men and young women, are delaying their marriages. They don't really they don't have any interest. They don't even show that interest of even getting married. We see so many people, young men and women, they're pursuing their career. They want to find themselves. They want to define themselves. But most of them, not all of them right now, are trying to define themselves through individualism. It means they want to be themselves, they want to build careers, they want to have degrees, they want to be successful in this life, and so forth. But even the concept of success have been drifted away from the concept of family and marriage to being successful individual. And unfortunately, many people are falling short when it comes to their relationship with their spouse. So therefore, we see the other problem in marital relationships nowadays in this century is that people they're getting married, but this marriage doesn't last too long. Many people, they end up their relationship with divorce, they end the relationship with estrangement, and even sometimes they end with, unfortunately, like so many incidents we have been watching on the news, with a murder. Just simply they snap out from that kind of relationship and they end up so violent in dealing with their spouses. What is going on? What exactly is happening to people in their relationship? What is happening to the concept of marriage and family life? And I would like briefly to talk about the concept of marriage and the concept of love and relationship from an Islamic perspective. It has been summarized in one simple verse and ayah in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God saying in the Quran, in Surah Ar-Rum, verse number 21, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Which means in the English translation, that amongst His sign is this, that He created for you, خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُم, from amongst yourself, أَزْوَاجًا, mates, spouses, لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, in order to find peace and tranquility with them. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً, and He established between your hearts mawadda, that is love, and mercy, rahmah. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Indeed, therein, means in these verses and those words, are signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the Creator, for those who would like to reflect. This is what summarizes the concept of marriage in Islam. We see that in living in the 21st century, it has become a culture, the body culture. Means everything is about beauty. People, they would like to marry someone because of their physical characteristics. Nothing about what is beyond that actually image. There's nothing wrong, of course, of pursuing something beautiful, because this is now signs of perfection in mankind as well. As Muslims, we believe that marriage is a sign of perfection in the life of man. So therefore, it is something virtuous to go and pursue in this life, in the legal way, of course. And in this ayah, in this verse in the Quran, our ulama, the commentators in the Quran, what they said, they based that the marriage itself, the successful marriage is based on two elements or two factors for a successful marriage. Number one, to have love, and number two, to have mercy. So if you have love, that's one thing, that's something very important in marital relationship. But number two, you also have the mercy. Most marriages, they start with a loving relationship. Specifically living in this culture, you have so many people who go with these kind of test driving marriages, or sometimes even drive-through marriage. They just meet each other, in a club or in some kind of casual event, and all of a sudden they're in love and they want to get married. Where are they getting their ideas for marriage from? Nothing really probably significant or serious, except that what they see on TV, what they read in fairy tales, and so on. So it starts with love. And then, like what we see in many, many relationships, specifically in life of celebrities, these kind of loving so-called relationships end up with divorce quickly after they get married. So, what happened to that love that they enjoyed before? What exactly is happening? What's going on with love? People, they have that, that feeling that love is something permanent. When they fall in love, they think that it's going to be for granted forever. But once they start their marital relationship, that's when they realize that love is more than just a mere thought, or just a passion, or even a lust. It's even more than that. And that's when mercy comes in. So we believe that love during that marital relationship transforms itself to different degrees and different also shapes. It starts with this passionate love. And then when the spouse, when the wife, she becomes pregnant, now they're expecting a child very soon. The husband and wife, they become more merciful to each other, more loving in a different way, of course, because there is something else that they're going to share together in this life. And then even when you have that child, now that love will be split between you, all of you, as a family. And now the father has another purpose of life. Besides, just being so loving to his wife, he also needs to be so loving to his family, sacrifice. And the wife will do the same thing. It's all about mercy and it's all about love transforming itself from one level to the other. Unfortunately, most people, they're still living these kind of idealistic dreams about a perfect relationship. And contemporary study just confirmed and proved that this perfect relationship is almost an illusion. There is nothing perfect about a marital relationship except to expect to have everything in your marital relationship. You have the ups and downs. You have the good times and the bad times. You have the times when you're upset and angry, and when you have the time when you're very happy and you're laughing and so on. Expecting a natural marital relationship. But if you expect to have that perfect relationship, means it's all about love, that's when people, when they start seeing that love is not there anymore, they start going for divorce. Because there is no purpose anymore for this relationship. But if you think of love as an action that you need also to do, and way of transforming that love to a merciful relationship as well, that's when when marriage actually starts prolonging and takes even a longer time, of course, between a husband and wife. We believe that family life should be all about love and mercy. It's not just solely about love, the passionate love. It's not solely just a mercy. It's a combination between love and mercy. And we believe that the best solution for the passions of people in this life is to respect this value, the value of family and the value of marriage. As Muslims, we do believe that there are certain guidelines that people need to observe in that marital relationship. When we say marriage, we're talking about contract. And a contract means it has its own provisions that both parties should honor and should also observe. You have things we call them rights, and also we have things we call them obligations. What men and women share together in marital life, it's all about their rights and their obligations, and hopefully we will have an opportunity to discuss the meaning of rights and obligations between a husband and wife in Islam. It has all been regulated in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad himself, peace be upon him. And by studying the best example for mankind, we'll see how a marital relationship would go so smooth and so loving and happy marital life. It is he himself, Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Prophet of Islam, who said, خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ, the best amongst you are those who are the best to their families. And then he said that I am the best to my family, in order, of course, to a recommendation for us to follow his perfect example as a role model for mankind.
That was wonderful. Thank you
very much.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. So we got a kind of an idea what marriage is in Islam. We have some practical things that are happening today. Tell us, is it true that when a Muslim completes marriage, this is like completing half of his faith?
It's a very common concept in the Muslim culture that indeed, when someone gets married, they complete half of their faith. Because most people, they have this kind of wild dreams and wild life and so forth. But once they get married, that's when they start settling down and they start becoming more focused on their goals in this life, and they understand themselves in the society in general.
Is it true that now once a man is married, he psychologically, physically, he becomes balanced?
He should be.
Yeah.
I mean, people, they should be. Why? Because now it's no longer about yourself. It's about us.
Yeah.
So when people they start, they have their own wild dream again. They won't like to be such and such, do all these kind of things and so on. And now when they get married, they have someone else in their life that when they think jointly, of course. So it's all about us. It's no longer about me personally or you personally. That doesn't mean that marriage will limit your personal dreams and goals as well. You can still achieve great goals in this life as an individual, but at the same time, with the assistance of your family, that would be a plus to you.
And then usually if you're not married, you have, it's not everybody, but I know people, it's you're kind of like a wild animal sometimes.
Well, it depends, of course, on the environment and how much they let it go loose.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Some people
because your desires run wild. You get heat. You're full of this heat and this passion, And you get a chance to get in some real trouble.
You live in the 21st century.
Yeah.
And when you go around walking in America, walking in the West in general, you would see that, again, it's all about body culture. Even right now, in almost everywhere in the
Body
world.
culture.
The body culture. It's all, wherever you go, it's all about men getting in shape, muscles, whatever actually they try to do.
Like
is
how they
strong,
just
something like
flexing,
that.
how I look, where we...
Exactly. Women, the same thing. They would like, of course, to lose weight. They want to be in shape. And plus, now even in fashion industry and so on, it's all about revealing more parts of the body than, covering and concealing that. Just like in the past, it was about, being so modest, covering yourself, being so respectful when you walk out into the street.
We lost that now.
And we lost that right
But
now.
Islam preserves it.
It
Brings it back. We don't compromise this in Islam.
We don't compromise that in Islam. Unfortunately, Muslims are doing that.
Muslims are
But
compromising.
Islam, it doesn't. Islam keeps that, of course, intact as one of the main regulations of the relationship between a man and a woman.
So at what age, because you see nowadays many parents are saying, and even individuals are saying, I got to finish college, I got this doctor's degree. At what age should a youth get married? Because we've gone away so far saying, it's 18, 19 is too young, it's too young, 30, even people 40 years old waiting to get married. What age should someone get married?
Well, the instruction of the Prophet Muhammad himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, is that when a person is capable, means physically and financially capable of getting married, they should not spare a moment.
They shouldn't spare a moment.
They shouldn't spare a moment. They should do that. However, of course, there are other instructions as well. Means that sometimes it becomes compulsory. It means obligatory in a person to get married. If they have that capability, financially, physically, and at the same time, they fear strongly that they might go into something haram, prohibited.
Meaning like fornication?
Fornication or adultery. In this case, they are obligated to go and get married. Because there's nothing really prevented from doing it.
Because is there boyfriend, girlfriend in Islam?
We don't have that concept in Islam at all.
How about if we just holding hands, boy and girl?
The same thing.
Can't do none of that. No touching, none of this playing around. She got to be your wife.
She got to be your wife.
That's clear as day.
And then in this case, so what about dating? How would people know each other?
How about that? That's a relevant question.
It's a very important question. Specifically living in this society, when you don't have that much access, maybe in Islamic environment. So how we go about it? Still, the family plays a major role in presenting, the youth to each other. Plus, we have a lot of Islamic centers who should facilitate this for the young people and families to come all together. Living in a multicultural society, it's very important to start tolerating interracial marriages and mixed marriages and so forth, instead of having only one particular culture. That puts too much pressure on some of those young people. We're talking about probably the culture of Muslim youth who are growing up in this society. Now they're developing their own culture. They're American Muslims. They're no longer, for example, Arab Muslims or even Indo-Pakistani Muslims or Bosnian Muslims and so on. They're American Muslims. It means they all come together from different backgrounds and they're building their own culture. So they need to start breaking the ice and tolerating these kind of mixed cultures between the Muslims.
What do you got to say to the parents who are restricting? Say the youth now, he's got this urge, right? And he wants to get married. He fears his Creator because he knows if I fall into the fornication, I'll get in some big trouble, right?
True.
That's one of the is that one of the major sins?
Absolutely.
Major sins.
Major sins. One of the major sins.
So
punishable
now,
sins.
Punishable. So you have this fear of your Creator and love. You don't want to displease Him. Now you want to get married. You've come to that. But your parents giving you a hard time. Now they're like, you know what? Wait till you finish school, and we got to get this $25,000 wedding. What do you got to say to the parents?
Well, my advice to the parents is that they need to make it easier for their children. Their children are living a different culture right now, a different society. I know most parents, they have that claim that we have gone through this ourselves, we have went to universities, we have went to colleges, and we survived the aftermath of these kind of experiences. So why shouldn't our kids also bear the responsibility and also then be more patient until they finish their school? I would say the culture has changed. The circumstances are changing, and your kids, they have that stronger urge, of course, to preserve themselves, and they have the full right to say that. However, I also send advice to the young kids, young men and women who would like to get married, that your parents, they need to see some responsibility from you. There's teaching a class with the Maghreb Institute called Love Notes, and sometimes in the activities we ask parents and we ask also young adults to give their perspective about why they're delaying their marriages and why parents are saying no for these early marriages. Unfortunately, it is understandable that parents, they look at their kids as they're still young and they're not ready for it. How do they define someone to be ready? When they see someone that he is right now responsible, means They have stable jobs. When they talk, they talk in a very respectful manner. They know they have defined goals in their life and so on. That's when they start seeing that their children are ready for marriage.
Let's say now we have a situation where the kid, he's not financially stable, but he's still in the heat. You know, we're talking about heat. We're men now.
Absolutely.
Can the parents even help out with financially supporting and even letting them live in the house, getting a room in the house and preserving that child rather than taking a chance and now he slips up and he goes and starts dating and fornicating and, you know, doing the zina and adult, whatever. What do you think about that?
I absolutely agree that if the parents would have the financial ability to support their children before even they finish school, that would be great help. I'm not saying that the kids right now they're going to be living in that perfect environment for a husband and wife, but at least that's better than doing something wrong. They're still at least doing it in a lawful way, in lawful manners. Plus, I would also suggest at least for just to make things easier for the children. If you know that your son or your daughter they would like to get married and they still didn't finish their school, why not then at least they facilitate the marriage for them by having the marriage contract done, which means they become Islamically and legally husband and wife, but still they delay what we call the consummation of marriage until more appropriate time. During that time, they have the liberty to stay together, to have dinner together, to come and visit, at home, because Islamically and legally considered husband and wife. The only thing that we are now deferring and delaying is the consummation of marriage until we think that they are completely ready for that. So they could move to their own individual and premises, they have their own apartment, and they have finished their studies, and the guy is even in a stable job and so on. But parents, they should try to help as much as possible in such, a heated culture like this in the 21st century.
How could marriage save one actually from the hellfire?
Oh, it saves them a lot. I mean, it's enough for the person when they really fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they fear God, and they go and they just pursue this relationship in a lawful manner, lawful way, to avoid, of course, committing the haram. That's part of an act of worship.
It's an act of worship. You're getting rewarded for that.
You're getting the reward for that if you're doing it lawfully. Even the Prophet Muhammad himself, when he was suggesting the acts of charity a person would do, the Prophet Muhammad, he mentioned things about marital relationship. Things like, for example, feeding your spouse with your own hand. That's an act of charity. And even someone approaching his desire in a lawful manner, it's an act of charity. So
you're telling me that in marriage, lawful marriage, you having relations with your wife, you're getting
reward for that.
You're getting rewarded for that also?
Absolutely. The Prophet Muhammad himself, he said that. He said, وَفِي بُضْعِ أَحَدِكُمْ صَدَقَةٌ, means someone approaches his spouse, means of course with intimacy and pleasure, they will be rewarded for that. Even his companions, they got shocked by that news. Said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, someone is going after his desire, and he goes and he gets reward. I mean, just satisfying his desire is a rewarding thing by itself. So do you get also a heavenly reward for that? He gave them now the rationale for that. He said, what if this person does that in an unlawful way? Wouldn't they be held accountable for that and he'll be punished for that? He said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. He said, O Messenger of Allah. He said, so the same thing. If he does that in a lawful way, he should be rewarded for that. So for a Muslim, seeking, of course, a marital relationship and maintaining the marital relationship in a healthy way, the struggle itself, which is called jihad al-nafs, means just education. It's self-struggle against the hardships of marriage, the hardship of raising a family. It's all rewarding. Everything that you do in that same understanding of getting the reward from God, you will get that.
That's the beautiful thing in Islam, that all these acts, all these little things you do, they're considered acts of worship.
Exactly.
And the angels writing down these deeds. Huh?
Everything, including your regular work, when you go out and work and earning for a living in order to feed your family, so that you don't go and you beg other people for that. You will get reward for that. Even the Prophet Muhammad himself, the dirham, which means the one dinar, looks like $1, that you spend on your family, is more rewarded than the one that you spend in charity. Why is that? Because now you're striving hard in order to save yourself and your family, going out, exposing yourself to humiliation. So that's an act of worship by itself. So marriage by itself is one gate to Al-Jannah, to paradise. For those who are interested in getting to paradise, marriage is one way of getting there. However, you have to do it the proper way.
Let's rewind for a second. When we talked about how much reward and blessings you get feeding your wife, having relations with your wife. How about some of our brothers who might have fallen into the trap now? Let's be real. 21st century.
Absolutely.
You got,
true.
You walk out the door, you got they're dressed, but they're not dressed. Mm-hmm. And the brother falls now. And this becomes like a disease. We know people that have been there and people that are there right now. What advice do you have for them? How do they get out of this trap of chasing their desires, flipping the woman, like you're changing your socks? How do you do that?
Well, this is something really.
How serious is this?
It's a serious disease that's taken
Talk
the
to 'em, tell 'em.
society. It's not just it's not just for the Muslim youth. It's for everybody. I mean, people they take advantage of this of the environment, saying if it's available, if pleasure is available for you for free, why should you go and you pay for it? Why should I open a house and bring some money and just basically face them every day and every night and bear the hardships of those people? If I can get what I'm looking for, if the main purpose is just desire, why should I even bear the hardships of marriage? That's a false concept. I mean, it's just an ephemeral desire. Sooner or later, this power of the energy of youth will start fading out to the reality of life, and that sooner or later they realize how much they wasted their time, and even they wasted their energy, even they wasted their deen and then their relationship with God in something that should have not been starting or doing in the first place. So for those people who are all getting into this, the Prophet Muhammad, he suggested that preserving yourself, protecting yourself from committing that zina, and until you meet your Lord, there is no reward but paradise and al-Jannah. So it's now feeling itself, that urge. The more you feel that you're into this desire, and then you hold yourself from this, the more reward you get.
More reward.
Exactly. And you know that in self-defense. I mean, you have to practice a lot.
Self-discipline, yeah.
Self-disciplining yourself. It's all about disciplining yourself. And I know most of those people that we are talking about over here, they're probably good Muslims. And they're good youth. Some of them even they fast the month of Ramadan. And just remember yourself when you were fasting the month of Ramadan. Who was holding you from drinking that cup of water when you were by yourself in the office or at room, in your room? Who was holding you from eating or from drinking when you see everybody's enjoying the pleasure of this life and you're just saying, no, I'm fasting? No one. But you were just really respecting the concept of fasting the month of Ramadan because it's solely for God. Islam, fasting itself is also teaches you that self-discipline. It does that to
And
you.
if you can do it during that month, we're training ourselves to be able to do it through the whole year.
That's why it's 30 days.
Yeah.
30 consecutive days, the month of Ramadan. Why is that? Because you know that you have to, first of all, if you don't want to start any practice, you have to warm up. And then when you warm up, you start the real practice, and then starts, of course, relaxing a little bit. That's exactly what Ramadan is all about. You start for 30 days, so you start warming up for the first few days, and then when you get adjusted to the system, that's when you start building that self-discipline. And by the end of the month of Ramadan, you know that it's coming very quick to an end. That's when you start, worshiping even more in the last 10 days of Ramadan. So that's the same thing in your real life. If someone is actually facing this disease of looking at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made haram and unlawful to them, or committing these kind of sins, first of all, they need to know that they need to stop. You know that you're already in a hole. And the first rule that you need to observe is to stop digging, which means you stop first, and then try to find a way out of that hole. So by stopping first means that you put that actually to a halt and stop. Then you start reflecting and going back, and then now you start seeking that help. And of course, you're calling other people, being in good company. It's very, very important. Try to avoid being around these areas will provoke your desire, and of course provoke the shaitan and the evil one to go around you and start seducing you to get back again to that same path.
Because if you're around people who are doing this, you're going to fall in that trap.
Absolutely.
So you got to watch out who you're hanging around with also.
You should. Company is very, very essential, very crucial in life.
Tell me this, how Islam, it preserves the rights of the woman. If you want to now be with this woman, you got to marry her. You got to maintain her. You got to take care of her. When in actuality, the man is like the wolf trying to get the hen. He's trying to use her, abuse her, and then leave her. Islam says, no, you cannot do that.
In real life, what we see in this culture, there are so many, what we call them, single parents.
Yeah.
But if you try just to watch and look at the ratio between single fathers and single mothers, there is no comparison. Most of those single parents are actually single mothers.
Yeah.
Which means men, unfortunately, they come and take advantage of them. And then they just leave. Why is that? Because they can find a better opportunity. It's open. There is no restriction. But in Islam, it preserves the right of women, the right of men as well in the marital relationship. So Islam views marriage to be partnership, not ownership. And that's why even something in this culture, when women they get married, they change their last name to their husband's last name. But in Islam, this is not allowed. Women, they should keep their last name in order to remind them that, this is not ownership. It's partnership. So you have rights and obligations, and as a husband, you should observe the rights of your spouse, and also make sure that the obligation against you are done correctly and in the right time, the proper man, proper etiquette. Same thing, the wife, she also needs to observe the rights and obligation of her husband. So it has always been maintained and regulated. Yes, it is just like any other corporation. And in corporations, usually they have a head of the house, the head of that corporation. And usually, men were given that because it feeds and nurtures their ego. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God created us, men and women, in a different way. However, with unique roles, in order to complete, not to compete against each other.
So to complete, not to compete.
So we complete one another. We don't compete against each other.
Yeah.
So these rights and obligations observed clearly, and they're mentioned clearly in the Quran and the tradition of Prophet Muhammad.
Just a few more points because we're almost out of time. What should one look for in their spouse? The one they're going to marry. What should they look for? The biggest bank account? The most perfect body? What should one look for?
This is now, it's about compatibility.
Yeah.
Who is the most compatible to you? It depends on how you look at it. What exactly your objective for marriage? You see, most people, they have their own objectives and their own idealistic dreams about marriage. So for those who are just thinking of pleasure and love, passionate love and so on, they would go after just the superficial probably image. Beauty, passions and stuff like that. For those who are more serious into it, they look into what is beyond that image. Of course, we suggest and we recommend to have all good qualities in your spouse, if you can. But the Prophet Muhammad himself, he suggested, he said that people usually they marry women for different qualities. And he counted 4 of them. He said, number 1, for their beauty, for their wealth, for their lineage, means of the respectable family, and also for their religion, for their faith. Means when you say faith, you're talking about faith and good character. Then he said, فَاظْفَرْ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ تَرِبَتْ يَدَاكَ, means if you can find that religious person, then go ahead. Don't miss that. May you be blessed.
That's the best quality.
That's the best quality. And even for men, he suggested to parents and guardians, when you receive someone, prospective husband to your daughter, who is religious and have a good character, you should not say no to this person. Why is that? Because this religious person, he holds these principles of justice, of mercy. And if he loves her, he will be so generous with her. But if he does not like her, he's not going to be unjust to her.
So what's better, if the guy comes to marry the daughter, he's a doctor, PhD, but he's missing the salat and his faith is not that high. He's like what they call a Ramadan Muslim, but he's a doctor. But then you got the other brother, he's making ends, he's doing okay, but he makes the 5 times prayer. He has the taqwa, the consciousness of his creator. What do you do?
I would absolutely choose the faithful one.
The faithful one.
Because if he's faithful, sincere about his faith, he's going to be faithful and sincere for my wife.
But this guy's a doctor though.
It doesn't matter.
He can read her pulse. If she got a condition, he can help her out.
Yeah, sure. But what if he doesn't really respect my daughter? What if he's not going to really take this, to a professional?
You could say, look, this is my son-in-law, Dr. Parker, Dr. Hussein.
It's not going to help my daughter in her relationship with her spouse. It's all about being happy with each other. That's the most important thing. And what really brings happiness to the life of people mostly is that being so happy about their relationship with God, number 1. Because if you do so, you have that peace of mind and peace in that heart, and that's when you become, if you're faithful to your Lord, you're going to be faithful to your spouse. Why is that? Because you believe in this. It's a message, and you believe that marriage is a religious institution that be initiated by God in the Quran, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called it مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. And I would like to make a closing on this. مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا means strong covenant. God called it in the Quran, called marriage a strong covenant, which means it's not something that's you mess with, you play with. You cannot do that. It's not about convenience. Now I like this lady, so I'm going to get married to her, and then a few months later you're going to go for divorce. Why? Because you're done. It's not about this. It's مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. Marriage was made to be continuous relationship between a husband and wife, and therefore it was observed as a مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. That means religious covenant. God is overlooking all these relationships, and therefore you see the regulations of marriage are found in the Quran, in the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad. They were not left for people to go and regulate for themselves. Otherwise, people are going to be biased against each other. Men will be biased against women, And women probably will take advantage in certain times against men. So what's the solution? It was always preserved in the faith itself. So it is indeed a mithaqan ghalidha, and people should respect marriage to be a strong religious covenant.
I want you to please, can you give inshallah to the parents and to the youth, give us some advice and some closing comments as we come to
Rasulullah
an end.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he recommended that for those young people, if you have the financial and the physical ability to get married, you should not spare a moment, and you should go and propose. And if you are not able to do so, he recommended another solution, temporarily at least, and that is to go for fasting. Because fasting gives again the person self-discipline. So it teaches you to discipline yourself and observe the consciousness of God in your lifetime, so in order not to fall into these mistakes and haram. And for the parents, I would like to recommend and suggest to make things easier for our youth. Those young people right now, they're suffering from high dowries and mahar and high expenses of marriages, and therefore they're trying to wait longer and longer in order to get that. It's not about, cultural event that you do in order to just to be proud of in front of the public. It's going to be one day and one night, and people probably they would regret that night for the rest of their lives. So make it easier for our kids and make it easier for them. I understand that you would like them to be responsible, and they should be responsible. And I also recommend that you don't really help anyone who's completely irresponsible. But we need to help them to understand the concept of responsibility, the concept of in the house, want to be a family person, make things easier for them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in their marriages. He was the one, the Prophet ﷺ said that أَقَلُّهُنَّ مُهُورًا أَكْثَرُهُنَّ barakah, means the less the mahar, the more barakah, blessing you will find in this marital relationship. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
Sheikh, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you. Alhamdulillah. I'd like to thank all our viewers who tuned in for another episode on the Deen Show, trying to help you understand and see how Muslims tackle these very important issues. Today we covered marriage. Inshallah, we'll have the Sheikh back again for another hot topic. Please visit the website, check out our video page, other topics that we've covered. Until then, we'll see you. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you.